Welcome into the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show. It's week 5. We got the flex show for you guys. We're going to take a look back at week 4, look at some of our biggest observations that we found on film, in data, or really anything else that happened in the NFL over the last few weeks here, and tell you guys how it can help you going into week 5, maybe some players that you can buy, sell, hold, what to do with all these players. Dave, this is usually one of our longest shows. We have a lot that we'd like to talk about. So we're not going to do like the whole preamble thing. Let's just get right into it. And I want you to start this off first because you've got a very level headed approach to something that's still just a fun headline to start with.
Yeah, I think the Odunze breakout is very real, and you should be buying high on him if anybody thinks that this is some sort of gimmick here. And I know a lot of people are going to look at the touchdowns, like 5 touchdowns for the first 4 games. A lot of people are going to say that is unsustainable, and I will say probably, but he's still a wide receiver 1, and there is value to be here. Like, I don't think that this guy is going to have 22 touchdowns like he's pacing for right now, but this isn't somebody who has just gotten lucky or had some broken plays or, the coach is spamming one play that keeps working over and over again. I went back and I watched all of his touchdowns, and they've come in a multitude of ways. First touchdown was this little goal line curl route. They just right in the 1 yard line, just ran a little curl wide open. He was able to beat his man, easy peasy. Next one, a catch and run slant that he was able to make a play after the catch. We got this pre-snap motion trickery on his third touchdown where he kind of, comes in motion, hides behind the offensive line, leaks out wide open for a catch and run. We got that one where Trayvon Diggs was press coverage against him, and he put him on the ground, mailbox go route, takes off for a big catch downfield. And then just this most recent game against the Raiders, we saw it was just a normal post route through traffic, but just a laser beam from Caleb Williams. So this isn't like one thing. This guy is winning inside, outside, deep, short, across the middle of the field. He is really developing into a wide receiver 1. And I know a lot of people are going to look at the rookie season production and like he is already compartmentalized into the bust category because he didn't get 900 yards in his rookie season like people want him to. But we got to look at the context here. Keenan Allen was on the team. DJ Moore was on the team and still the main guy there. Caleb Williams was still developing. The offense was broken. There's so much context that you can add to the disappointing rookie season, but none of that matters now. This guy was a top 10 pick. He's got the prototypical size. We typically see these big guys take a little bit longer to acclimate to the NFL, but it seems like he is there now. This guy can win immediately off the line. He's got the speed to get deep. He's got the strength to make plays after the catch and catch balls through traffic. There's just a lot to like in Rome Odunze. This isn't a fluke. This isn't a guy you should be trying to sell high on. If you drafted him late in your draft, it was because it was a very mercurial room and nobody knew who the wide receiver 1 in this Bears offense was going to be. But I think it is very clearly Rome Odunze, and I don't expect that to change.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here, Dave, is not even just that he's scoring touchdowns, but it's the usage. Like it's a lot of the
Mhm.
things that you said, and it's that he's being used in different ways, and it's more so not even just how he's being used, but how other players on the team are not being used. It's like DJ Moore. I don't want to say he's an afterthought, but
Oh,
he
he's an
is
afterthought.
really he's
You
like
could
he's
say
just
it.
he's not the lead wide receiver on this team. I don't even think that oftentimes he's the second target on this team. Caleb Williams and DJ Moore just seem to not have any sort of connection there. And this was something like it's one of those intangible things we always talk about, but it always kind of gets waved off of like, shut up. Where like last year we were talking about how these guys in rookie camp were developing this chemistry. And then they go the
Mhm.
whole rookie season with things really not taking off. And it's sort of like, see, you don't have to buy into these narratives. But these relationships, this chemistry, it builds over time, and it's something that is very real. So yeah, I'm with you. I was actually going to talk about the same thing and talk about how Rome Odunze is here to stay, and like you should be holding him. And if you see, because I know you're going to see a lot of like buy, sell, hold advice out there, there's probably going to be a lot of people dropping the sell Rome Odunze after another touchdown week. Eventually, touchdown regression as he shakes his fists in the air.
And we're like everybody wants to buy low and sell high, but when everybody's trying to do that, there
Yeah.
aren't really opportunities to buy low and sell high. So I think like buying high and selling low, it's not like you're not selling low for like 30 cents on the dollar. You might be selling low for like 80 cents on the dollar for some players. And sometimes it's okay to do that just to move off of them. And Roma Dunze, yeah, he was a discount in drafts and you might be paying a buck 20 on the dollar right now for him, but you're getting a guy that could realistically be a top 10 wide receiver. Yeah, I talk about the touchdowns, but also like 27% target share right now. That's awesome. Like he's 14th in the league in target share. And I'll just add on. You said, like, I don't want to say DJ Moore is an afterthought, but he is. And like if you watch these games, it feels like he always gets these like pity targets in the fourth quarter where it's like, okay, like now that we've kind of got a wrap on this game, like let's throw a couple targets DJ Moore's way so he feels okay. But like I've been saying it for a while now. I don't think he's a good fit in this offense. I think a trade is looming, and I think that they are comfortable just building this offense around Rome Odunze.
Man, I'm going back to the Luther Burden thing I talked about last week. If a trade does happen with DJ Moore, I think it's actually in the best interest of not just DJ Moore and fantasy managers, but of the Bears as well, man. Like, get some value for this guy. Luther Burden can go out there and catch 3 passes for 26 yards. Like, that can happen. It's not that hard. Oh, scratch that. It's hard, but not for NFL players. Dave, I know we kind of scoffed at the idea of buying low on players, but sometimes it's appropriate, and sometimes you can buy the perceived dip on a player. And I'm willing to buy the dip on Saquon Barkley because I think that we've seen 2 weeks here where the fantasy manager who drafted him number 1 overall, number 2 overall, number 3 overall, wherever it was, they're probably getting a little nervous. And as they're sitting around and looking at all the top players that aren't performing up to standard, they might be thinking, man, Saquon Barkley, what a wasted pick. I should have gone Bijan Robinson. I should have gone X. Dave, I'm thinking of it now. Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. I think the only one who's really has like given you what you need every week has been Bijan Robinson. It's
Gibbs.
been kind of a Gibbs, yeah, okay, yeah,
I think those are the two. Yeah, top half of round 1. If you got Bijan or Gibbs, you're feeling good. If you took anybody else, you're kicking yourself.
Yeah, man, and it's crazy. But like looking at Saquon, the recent struggles, he was running back 31 in week 3. Context. He went up against the Rams, who are number 1 against fantasy running backs this season. Then running back 17 in week 4, which by the way, for most people would be a great week. But for Saquon Barkley, that's not what you drafted him for, to be running back 17. Going up against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Vita Vea, always a good run defense. There's a thing though that I do want to point out. Saquon Barkley has the most rush attempts in the NFL against a stacked box. And a stacked box means 8+ defenders by the line of scrimmage. It's hard to be consistently gaining yardage that way when the box gets stacked like that by defenders. And that's not something that I'm expecting to continue to happen. I know that a lot of what defenses are going to want to do is make Jalen Hurts beat you through the air. But we've seen at times that he can do that. And especially with this wide receiver room, the Eagles can do that. So I do expect that the stack box thing will start to lighten up a little bit. But the thing is for me is with Saquon Barkley, the usage is there. He's tied for second in the league with 58 carries. He's had four receptions in at least 3 of his 4 games. That's big to me, is seeing that, yeah, he might be down in rush attempts from last year, but he's doubling his targets per game from last year. And so, sure, if teams are going to stack the box, fine. Let's get Saquon Barkley out in space. Let's start passing him the ball out in space. That's going to be so much more valuable for fantasy, and it's going to be a way to keep defenses honest. They won't be able to stack the box like they've been trying to do. Plus, pretty easy schedule coming up for fantasy running backs over the next 4 weeks. Denver, who just gave up big games to Amari Hampton and Jonathan Taylor. You get the New York Giants twice. They gave up 5 running back touchdowns in 4 weeks so far. And the Minnesota Vikings, who just got carved up by Kenneth Gainwell. So I think if there is even a perceived dip here where you can buy or have a, quote, buy window on Saquon Barkley, it's right now before the big games start to happen.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Saquon Barkley because the opportunities have been there, like 5th in the league in expected fantasy points, but just giving us RB13 production, like that's not great to see. And the efficiency metrics we talked about a little bit last week have been so bad, like the fewest yards after contact per attempt of his career, the lowest broken tackle rate since the year he was coming back from his ACL.
Like I'm watching him and he doesn't look bad, Dave. Like,
yeah, and that's
I don't know what it is.
He's still like the same bouncy guy that like, can get through the line of scrimmage and has those little movements that like allow him the jump cuts and all that sort of stuff. The difference is Saquon Barkley is that guy that typically when he gets into the second level, he can break that tackle from a safety and then score from 60 yards out. And we haven't seen him break those second level tackles yet, which is weird. I don't know if this is just a sign of who Saquon has become at this point in his career, or if it's just a matter of time before he breaks those off. But that's the big thing is like last year we saw all of these huge breakaway runs from Saquon Barkley. And now when he gets into the second level, he's not breaking through it. So it's tough. Like I went back and I spent like 3 hours watching film on Saquon the other day, and the same thing, like he still looks like the same player. And it's just like, you could see he's right on the precipice. Like, it's so close to being there. Like, you'd see that last guy in the defense, and Saquon Barkley would just get tripped up a little bit and then tackled. And it's like, it seems like last year, those were the ones where Saquon Barkley would just step out of that tackle and then take off for another 60 yards and a touchdown. So, like, I feel like it's there and we just haven't seen it. And I'm so torn because I don't know if maybe he did lose that second gear because of last year's workload. You know, the Madden curse and the scourge of 600 and all these things that we talk about. I don't want to buy into it, but it also is weird that here we are like a quarter of the way through the season and Saquon Barkley hasn't had a big breakaway run yet.
But a lot of running backs haven't done it. Like, we haven't
Right?
seen a lot of big
Bijan
breakaway runs
hasn't in
from,
his whole career.
like, yeah, Bijan, Christian McCaffrey hasn't had the big breakaway run yet. I think really the only guys in the top, Jonathan Taylor, and I can't really think of anyone else. Like,
Travis
it,
Etienne,
yeah,
he's had some nice
like,
ones,
but
yeah.
he wasn't like a top guy that was being drafted. Like,
Right.
I'm going back to think about it, and there just doesn't seem like there was a lot. And this has also been too, like, while the Eagles are struggling, and while they're struggling, they're still going out and putting up 20 plus points in weeks. And so, like, to me, to think of it that way, it's like, okay, if we are, what's most likely? Does the Eagles offense continue to quote struggle, or do they get even better from where they're at now, where they're out here scoring 30 points in a game and still being considered a bad offense? And then the Saquon Barkley thing going into the second level. And you and I talk about this all the time, and we were talking about it before the show. Like, stats do deserve context, and there are moments where Saquon Barkley, man, he could have broken that tackle, or we believe he could have broken that tackle last year. And then there's other times where is it really yards after contact, or, like, yards after contact get judged very differently based on how the stat is being looked at. So sometimes it's you got, like, tapped, or sometimes it's two or three tacklers that are on a running back. So
Right.
I'll say this, like, I do think what's most likely, and that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We're pontificating, we're trying to predict a game. What's most likely, Saquon Barkley is still Saquon Barkley. The Eagles offense is still good. We get some of these longer breakaway runs, and honestly, the Eagles probably continue to find ways to get Saquon Barkley the ball out in space. Like, and that's what we've seen so far with the targets. So I'm
The
not
last thing
saying go and
I'll
sell the
note,
farm for him.
yeah, the last thing I'll note too is we talk about the yards after contact per attempt because I think that's like a good metric of what a running back can do. But the yards before contact per attempt is very much so an offensive line stat. Like, are they giving guys the ability to pick up yards before they're getting
Typically, yeah.
touched? And that's what's weird. Saquon Barkley is averaging 1.7 yards after contact per attempt. That's the worst of his career. Like,
You
you
mean yards
remember,
before contact
or
per
yes,
attempt?
sorry, yards
Okay.
before contact per attempt. Yeah, I'm sorry. So, like, remember 2023, how bad that Giants offensive line was? And we were just like,
Yeah.
well, this is the end for Saquon Barkley. He was averaging more yards before contact per attempt in that year than he is this year. So that's the other thing is, like, last year, it just felt like there were so many times where we would just see these wide open rushing lanes where, like, Saquon Barkley would just get the ball and boom, 60 yards untouched for a touchdown. And that isn't happening this year. So I think a lot of this is just, you talked about it, like the stacked front rate. I was hoping that after the second half of that Rams game where they had to air it out a little bit and they showed, like, hey, when we need to throw the ball, we still can, that going into week 4, the defense would play them a little bit differently. But they just went right back to stacking the box and just loading it up on Saquon. So it's kind of this like weird thing where, like, defenses are saying, we're going to do everything we can to stop the run. And the Eagles are just saying, okay, well, we're just going to keep running it for 3-4 yards per attempt and just, beat you guys by draining the clock. And as frustrating as it is, it's working. They're 4-0.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this. The Eagles are a boring offense, but they're going to still score points, and it's going to be almost disgusting the way that we're going to be watching it. All right, Dave, hit me with your next one.
This one, it's pretty similar to what I just said about Odunze, but I'm going to say this about Quentin Johnston. He is the most valuable Chargers wide receiver going forward. He's leading the team in targets, yards, touchdowns. He's got over 100 more receiving yards than the next closest, which is Keenan Allen, not Lad McConkey, but I digress. We won't get into that discussion. And, I just wrote about Quentin Johnston in my rest of season rankings article. I did this big intro about Quentin Johnston and biases and social media and all this sort of stuff if you want to check it out. But basically, to sum it up, I think we just had this, like, after year one, like, you remember how it was, Alfredo, when Quentin Johnston was coming into the league. I don't know if there was a more polarizing player in the draft class. Like, his detractors were saying, like, oh, this guy's just a raw prospect who's never going to hit any sort of ceiling. And then you know, the other people saying like this guy is a developmental guy, but like could develop into a good receiver. And I think people were just so quick to just put a nail in his coffin after his rookie season that he kind of had this year two breakout that just got ignored and got explained away. And like, you know, when you see a guy jump from just a little over 300 yards to 700 yards and 8 touchdowns in year two, I think we should have put a little bit more weight in that. And everybody just kind of like brushed it off. And then at the start of this year, people were trying to brush off what he was doing. And now I think what we saw in weeks 3 and 4 is that he has just developed into a legit weapon. Like we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, like just beating Pat Surtain like a drum in week 3, like drawing coverage from one of the league's best defensive backs and consistently beating him rep after rep after rep. And then in week 4, you know, this is a tight game where I was thinking like maybe now we start to see a little bit more Lad McConkey. And no, they just leaned on Quentin Johnston even more than they have in any other game this season. He pulled 13 targets. But he also had that really nice touchdown run that wasn't a broken play or anything like that. Like it was him getting press coverage, beating the guy with a nice go route, getting behind his defensive back, safety coming over, making a contested catch over a safety. Like he is starting to put it all together. And I'll be the first to admit, like we don't see this often. Like a lot of times when we see these developmental guys struggle in their first 2 years, that's it. Like we all remember Jonathan Mingo and Traylon Burks and these other guys, but there is the rare receiver that does put it together. And I think that's what we're seeing now with Quentin Johnston. So I think a lot of people kind of held on to their pre-draft notions about Quentin Johnston and, you know, his struggles his rookie season with the drops and the lack of separation and concentration issues and all that sort of stuff. But he has been putting in the work and becoming a better receiver. We're seeing good route running now. We're seeing him beat press coverage. We're seeing the contested catches. We're seeing the plays after the catch. So much like Odunze, this isn't something that I'm trying to just brush off or say, you know, isn't a real thing. I'm buying into it here. I do my rest of season rankings and I move Quentin Johnston way up in those rankings ahead of Keenan Allen, ahead of Lad McConkey as a top 15 rest of season wide receiver. And like Roma
Wow.
Dunze, I'm buying into the hype and I'm trying to buy high here. This isn't a guy that I'm trying to say is fluky or is going to come crashing back down to earth or turn into a pumpkin or anything like that. I think that he is just the wide receiver one on this team. And I'd rather buy high now than try to buy high 3 weeks from now when his value is even double what it is.
So I'm not gonna poo-poo the idea of Quentin Johnston being a good player now because he is. I do think that we do start to see things even out as the season goes on. Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen are weirdly drawing a lot of double coverage, and I wish I was searching frantically for the stat because there was a percentage of double coverage that they're both receiving right now, which is strange. And I think it almost we start to see the pendulum start to swing in the other direction where Quentin Johnston has been so good that I'm curious as to when defenses are going to say, man, we got to stop this guy who's torching every defense he plays for these deep plays and these touchdowns and start to make Lad McConkey try to beat us, you know, or Keenan Allen try to beat us. So I think that's kind of the good and bad thing with having 3 good wide receivers on a passing offense that has been this good is I do think eventually the pendulums start to swing in different directions, and then we could potentially have the Lad McConkey's back. He's looking good, and then Lad McConkey's gone, and Quentin Johnston is gone. Keenan Allen, look at the late season surge from him, and then he's gone, and it's because he's old. And I'm not trying to say like I don't believe in Quentin Johnston because I've become a believer now. He is playing very good football. I do have that little voice inside my head that says I still don't know that we've seen what the Chargers are. Maybe I'm being foolish. Maybe 4 weeks is telling us exactly who they are, and this is where they keep going. I after seeing, and I wish I had the number, after seeing the percentage of double coverage for Lad and Keenan, it starts to make me think defenses are going to try to change the way they are approaching the Chargers passing game.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, like if I was a defensive coordinator and I saw, you know, a 6'3" guy who was just consistently blowing up for huge plays, I'd probably be trying to double cover him too. I mean, what we did see in this
Yeah.
the matchup with the Broncos, I mean, they didn't have to double team him because he was getting Pat Surtain, and there was oftentimes a safety over the top as well, and he still had a good game in that one. So what I do notice when I watch the film is that the safety always seems to be trending over in Quentin Johnston's direction. Like if he's lining up on the left, the safety's taking a few steps in that direction. If he's lining up on the right, the safety's taking a few steps over there. So this is something that it seems like teams are game planning for. And we saw that with the Pat Surtain shadow a couple of weeks back. So, you know, I could see, I see what you're saying. Like, where if they do just say, like, we're going to make it our number one primary goal to shut down Quentin Johnston, that we do see opportunities open up for Lad McConkey. But then what happens when Lad McConkey starts eating defenses alive? And then they say, okay, well, now we need to shut down Lad McConkey. And then Quentin Johnston starts blowing up again. So, I said it after week one. And I think a lot of people thought that it was like hyperbolic at the time. But I said, I think this is the best wide receiver trio in the league. Like, how
Yeah.
complementary their skill sets are, how they work off of each other. And it is just a nightmare for defensive coordinators to have to game plan for when you've got Lad McConkey who can run a route on every blade of grass on the field. Keenan Allen just immediately like one step off the line of scrimmage and he's already released from his defender. And then you've just got the biggest, fastest, strongest guy on the field in Quentin Johnston doing Quentin Johnston things. I don't know how defensive coordinators are supposed to plan for this.
By the way, you're doing the thing where you're saying some people said. It was Alfredo who said it. It's okay.
No,
You
it
can
was a
say
lot of
that.
people. It wasn't just you. A lot of people had Quentin Johnston takes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's
I mean,
let's go
to
to
be
the
fair,
next.
I said it too. Like, I kind of, I'll be the first to admit, and that's what I wrote about in my article, is that like I very much so was part of the like Quentin Johnston's done after his rookie season, and that's what I wrote about.
This
Was a
is not
very
common anymore. It used to be
right.
common that a third-year breakout was like, okay, well, receivers take time. The NFL doesn't have patience like this.
Nico Collins comes to mind as a guy who had like that year 3 breakout, and I think the difference is there weren't as many expectations for Nico Collins because he was a round 3 pick. QJ was a round 1 pick, but it does take like, we see, I feel like the guys that we see immediately make impacts are just the real small twitched up guys that can just win routes. These bigger guys, I think it does take them a little bit more time to acclimate. Like, that's why I'm not ready to completely write Marvin Harrison Jr. off yet. We saw it take Quentin Johnston a few years. We saw it take Nico Collins some time. And of course, sometimes these guys do just like face plant, but I think that if there's one like archetype of receiver that we need to exercise more patience with, it is these big, strong, fast, physical guys, because where they're just bullying, college level talent, they can't get away with that at the NFL, and it takes a few years to kind of get up to speed.
And like, to be fair too, is that this isn't even a Quentin Johnston thing. This is a Chargers offense thing. Like
Yeah.
the Chargers offense looks very different. They're passing the ball at a higher rate that they have in any of the previous seasons. Like, this is not what we've seen from Greg Roman recently, but this is also something that you and I said earlier on in the offseason, is that this was going to be very possible because it is a Justin Herbert led offense that, hey, look at that. Greg Roman will be able to pass the ball more. So this was always a possibility. It's just now happening. And I think we're all trying to process is like, okay, what does this offense actually mean now going forward? Okay, let's go to the next one on here because we got a bunch more to talk about. I'm saying I'm not buying the hype on DK Metcalf right now. I want to sell DK Metcalf as soon as I can. And for me, Dave, the whole thing is just what is sustainable. To me, the touchdown rate at which he's doing things on this low volume is so unsustainable. Only getting about 5 to 6 targets per game. He's had 3 straight touchdowns, way out producing his expected fantasy points each week. And the crazy thing for me is it's the short yardage rule, right? Like, most of his looks are coming within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. There's not really the real deep shots that we used to see him get. Only 2 targets beyond 20 yards all season this year. And this is not, I know you had your concerns about like Rodgers being a timing quarterback and DK Metcalf not really being a timing receiver. And I don't even think any of us predicted this, where we're like, well, DK Metcalf, slant merchant, and Aaron Rodgers, line of scrimmage, passer at this point. Like, there's a weird offensive identity that I don't, we are not used to seeing this for any of these players. And it's the Rodgers, Steelers, Arthur Smith identity right now. 5.1 average depth of target for Aaron Rodgers is lowest among starting quarterbacks. It's lowest in his career. This last game, only 2 completions beyond 10 yards. Like, this just, it's not the guy that we're used to seeing. I'm actually just genuinely befuddled. They're making it work week by week here. Next gen stats, Dave. I pulled this one off of NFL Pro, which, by the way, you guys out there, if you don't have it, it's a really fun tool to have. But Rodgers averaged just 2.6 air yards per attempt, more than 1 full yard fewer than his average in any other game dating back to 2016. Over 60% of Rodgers' completions went to running backs and tight ends, his lowest target share to wide receivers in the league this year. There's something here where plays aren't developing. There's not time. I don't know if it's lack of confidence in his arm. I don't know if it's lack of time in the pocket, but Rodgers is getting the ball out really fast. He's getting the ball to the running backs. He's getting the ball to the tight ends. This is an Arthur Smith thing. Um, yeah, sure. The target tree is probably a little consolidated, and DK Metcalf will still get his 5 or 6 targets per game. But with the fifth fewest pass attempts in the NFL, I'm like I'm just not seeing this as a sustainable thing. So use this moment where he gets the big play that everyone's seeing. It's all over the highlights. He's getting the 126 yards and a touchdown. Use that moment, package DK Metcalf, and go get someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I was excited because in week 4 we saw what we wanted to see from DK Metcalf. Like he more than doubled his slot rate. Like he was playing out of the slot where he can get free releases, and that's what we were hoping for. But the funny thing is, like that big touchdown he scored wasn't even out of the slot. Like he was lined up wide on press coverage and just happened to have like a nice little route where he was able to get free there.
Did
But
you see that Aaron Rodgers it looked like he had a smelling salt out there on the field?
love it.
And
No,
just took
I
a big
didn't see
whiff of
that.
a smelling. Like they did a zoom in on his face where he just did like the, and his eyes like opened up big, and then that's the exact same play where he throws the slant to DK Metcalf, and I was like, see, Rodgers just
Uh,
powered up.
I love that like nobody ever even like talked about smelling salts, which have been like such a common thing in the NFL. But then
Yeah,
when they went through like the rule to try to ban them, now you see Rodgers with them on the field. Did you see the game winning kicker the other day came out and like hit a smelling salt like right before his game winning kick? Like now
it's
you
just
see everybody
crazy.
just like rubbing it in the league's face that they're doing it. But yeah, man, I was looking at the intended air yards per pass attempt this morning, and it is unbelievable, man. Like th- it's a pretty sticky like team over team. Like a lot of these guys throw about the same. So let me just like, you've got the top of the list. 8.8 is Lamar Jackson pushing the ball downfield at a higher rate than anybody else. You go all the way down to Bryce Young, who is the third lowest in the league, and 6.5. Like there's a 2 yard difference between the highest in the league and then the third lowest in the league. And then below Bryce Young, you've got Kyler Murray, who is a full yard below Bryce Young. And then you've got Aaron Rodgers, who's a full yard below Kyler Murray. Like Kyler Murray and Aaron Rodgers are just playing a different type of football than anybody else in the league. And it's not pretty. Like, it is not a fun offense to watch. I'm sure you saw the pass chart. There wasn't a single pass attempt in that Ireland game that went more than 15 yards downfield.
Dude.
Rodgers is just dinking and dunking his way down the field, but it's working. And yeah, I think that like selling DK Metcalf high now. I mean, my home league group chat was like buzzing about DK Metcalf and how good he looked. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I see a slant. Like he is a big, fast man, and if you can get the ball in his hand, nobody's going to catch him. But like you're just hoping that he can rip off that big play. Like he's not a
It,
target hog. He's not a
am I
route
being
runner.
too
Like
negative to think that like I don't know, 9 out of 10 NFL wide receivers would make, or maybe 8 out of 10 NFL wide receivers would make that same play? You catch the slant and just keep running. I know DK Metcalf is a special
I think a
talent,
lot of other
special
guys.
speed.
Yeah, I think a lot of other guys are going down at like the 10, 15 yard line. I
Okay.
think DK does have that extra gear that allowed him to score on that play. But like DK Metcalf, I don't know how to say this like without it coming off rude, but like there he's big and he's fast, and like there
Mhm.
is something for that. But like it's very similar to like Deshaun Jackson. Like Deshaun Jackson was never a wide receiver one. He's a guy who could get behind defenses and he could make these big plays, but like never really developed into a route runner. Like never was the guy who was like somebody that you wanted to build a passing attack around. And I feel like that's what DK is too, and that's why Seattle was willing to move on from him for a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba, who might not have the top end speed but can do so much more and be a weapon on every level of the field. To me, like I don't really understand the Steelers trading for him, especially when they had George Pickens, who like I think George Pickens can do a lot of the same things that DK Metcalf can do. But yeah, I mean, like he's the number one receiver there, and I think that people are going to be excited coming off this Ireland game. I agree with you though. Like I'd be trying to sell high where I can.
There's some interesting names out there that you could, because DK Metcalf right now, wide receiver 17
Hmm.
in fantasy. Um, some interesting names that are a bit lower that people might like. Tedero McMillan is getting tons of targets, but it's not always turning into production.
He
And
hasn't
I
scored a
think people are
touchdown yet.
getting,
That's
yeah,
the perfect type of move that you make is like moving off
yes,
of the guy who is a very technical route runner, a guy who is putting a lot of versatility on tape, a guy who's drawing a ton of targets and not scoring touchdowns. I want that guy in fantasy over the guy who's not scoring or not drawing targets, but scoring a lot of touchdowns.
dude, 8+ targets in every single game. Like I get it. There's going to be frustrations. I also think there's the intangible part of it. If people are thinking, I got burned. I listened to the fantasy analysts again, and I drafted Tedero and McMillan in the 5th round, and look at what he's doing. He's like a wide receiver 30 something. So yeah, to me, I think that's the perfect trade I want to make.
Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat.
All right, let's go to the next one on here.
I'm going to talk about Travis Etienne a little bit because I think a lot of people have
Love it.
just looked at Liam Cohen's offense from last year and have just said, the script writers are just copy and pasting last year's storyline. And Liam Cohen's offense, we got this sparked up day 3 rookie that everybody's excited about, and he's going to take the job just like Bucky Irving did. And I just don't think that's going to happen. I think the bar to clear, the bar being Rashad White and Travis Etienne. I think the Travis Etienne bar is much higher to clear. And I get it. Like if you look at like the per touch metrics, there are some exciting things about Bashal Tutin, but Travis Etienne has been the bright spot on this Jaguars offense. He has looked amazing, and I just don't see this change happening like people expect it to. Not to mention the connection with Trevor Lawrence. Like Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence have been playing together for like a decade now, like back to their Clemson days. Like there's clearly some sort of comfortability there. Travis Etienne can do everything too. Like he's a good pass blocker, he's a good pass catcher, he can do the breakaway speed. He's developed into a much better
And the
runner between
Jaguars
the
are
tackles.
winning. You
And the
don't make big
Jaguars,
changes when you're winning.
they're 3-1. Exactly. Yeah. So I understand why people get excited about Bashal Tutin because of what we saw last year with Bucky Irving, but this is a completely different situation. Like Travis Etienne is a first round pick who has 3,700 scrimmage yards through his first 3 years. He's one of the league leaders in scrimmage yards so far through the first 4 weeks this season. The Jags offensive line is good. Etienne is going to continue doing what he's doing. Sure, Bashal Tutin, a very good player to stash with elite contingent upside if Travis
Yep.
Etienne has to miss any time. But I think those saying that, pointing out the advanced analytics for Bashal Tutin and what he's doing on a per touch basis, I think that's a lot of wish casting, like hoping that he's going to take over Travis Etienne's role. And that just doesn't happen. Like how long did we have this conversation with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, or with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott? Like, yes, when these guys come in for limited touches with fresh legs against soft fronts, they're going to have really nice advanced per touch analytics. But Travis Etienne is a workhorse and he is really excelling in that role. They're not just going to wake up one day and say, "Hey, let's see what Bashal Tutin can do in Travis Etienne's role." It's just not going to happen. So I think that there's a lot of people right now saying to get out of Travis Etienne while you can and buy Bashal Tutin. And I agree, buy Bashal Tutin because I think the upside is there if the opportunity arises. But I'm taking advantage of this narrative that what happened last year in Liam Cohen's offense, and I'm trying to buy Travis Etienne where I can.
He's honestly, I mean, he's a good handcuff to have. That's what Bashal Tutin
Right.
is. But like you've been saying, the idea that he's going to overtake Travis Etienne, I don't think is I don't want to say it mean, but I don't think it's very plausible that it happens. Etienne's just playing too well. The Jaguars are winning. And I think it's this backfield kind of remains more of a mess than anything, where I don't know that Tutin has the standalone value. I mean, look, Quentin Allen going out there for like 18% of snaps and then Tutin going out there for like 20% of snaps. It's just, I don't think either of them are really all that valuable. This is Travis Etienne's backfield just to keep running and getting the valuable touches here, man. Like that's honestly what I think we're going to keep seeing.
And you look like the Jaguars, their defense has been great. They are generating a ton of turnovers. Special teams has been one of the best in the league. The running game has been completely unstoppable. The issues right now are in the passing game. And I think that's where
Mhm.
Liam Cohen is going to be spending his time on. Like, let's get Brian Thomas Jr. going. Let's get Trevor Lawrence going. Let's get Travis Hunter going. I don't think that they're sitting in the film room right now saying, Travis Etienne, we should try to switch that up. Let's just for the fun of it, let's
Right.
just switch things up with Travis Etienne. No, they're
You know
going to
what the
keep
fantasy
doing what's
managers would
working.
love?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think that I'm saying anything that isn't kind of well known, but I think like if you've got Travis Etienne and you're thinking like I should try to sell high before Bashal Tutin steals his job, I wouldn't worry about that.
All right. Next up on here. And I think you and I always try to do the level headed, logical thing. And especially in these episodes where we might talk about, what a player could or a couple of players could do down the road. I'm going to try to keep this as level headed as possible. It is okay to bench your Bengals players over the next couple of weeks and potentially even going forward. I wouldn't necessarily be selling them, but if the right offer comes along, I'm also okay with you trading away your Bengals players, and that includes Jamar Chase. Right now, the Cincinnati Bengals have an issue with Jake Browning. And Jamar Chase, like we already know, he's an amazing player. He's an amazing player when he's got his quarterback. And I think a lot of us got to see the Justin Jefferson thing last year with Sam Darnold and see, like, look, there are wide receivers that are going to be quarterback proof. I'm going to say it, not every wide receiver is Jake Browning proof. Like, there are just some quarterbacks that can break the mold no matter how good a wide receiver is. They don't have a 14-foot wingspan that can catch everything that's within the vicinity. Like, it's just not going to happen. Jamar Chase, when he's out there with Jake Browning, PPR point output gets cut in half, from 22 to 11 PPR points per game. Target share goes down, which you'd think it would go higher when a backup quarterback is in there and needs to rely on a good player. It doesn't. It goes down. Jamar Chase, he's been a wide receiver 33 or worse in 8 of the last 10 games where Jake Browning was the starter or played the majority of snaps. You can start Jamar Chase when you need to as your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, flex play, which sounds crazy to say all this, I know, but especially in the next 2 upcoming games where things are going to be tough, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, I'm okay with benching him if you need to, if you have matchups that are going to be better. Now, the thing is, we're going into bye weeks, so you may not have the bench that's able to do that. But if you're sitting there and saying, I can't bench Jamar Chase, I can't bench T. Higgins, I can't bench Chase Brown. I mean, you can definitely bench Chase Brown at this point. But the Bengals players, they're not the must starts that they were. T. Higgins, this is another one, Dave. T. Higgins with Jake Browning drops down to a 13% target share. In the last 2 games with Jake Browning, 2 receptions, 24 yards, outside the top 60. Like, this is a player that I think in most years, if we're just looking statistically, you might not even roster him, let alone start him. And this is where you have to be able to make some tough decisions. The only reason I say is you don't have to sell them is because the schedule does get easier. The Bengals could make a move. We could see Joe Burrow back earlier than we think. But in that fantasy playoff schedule time, things get really nice for the Bengals. The problem is if you don't make those tough decisions now, you may not make it to the fantasy playoffs. So that's why I wanted to give this a ton of context and kind of maneuver every single avenue for this this statement about the Bengals players.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it could get much worse for Jake Browning than it's been these last 2 weeks. I mean, going up against the Vikings on the road and then the Broncos on the road, like that is really, really tough sledding. But as you alluded to, Lions next week, in Green Bay the week after that, it's not like it gets a whole lot easier for him either. So I think the move is to hope that these struggles continue and then try to pounce in 2 weeks. And then you try to trade for Jamar Chase and some of these other guys, because I think that once the schedule opens up, then, you know, it really opens up.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh, the New York Jets, Chicago
it's
Bears,
great.
Pittsburgh again. I mean, it gets a lot easier after these next couple of weeks. But I think a lot of people right now are going to be sitting there with their Chase Browns and their Jamar Chases and they're 0-4 and they're desperate to make a move. So if you can make a move now, I think it's okay. But yeah, like you talk about T. Higgins, I've got him outside my top 36 wide receivers this week. Like I am not starting T. Higgins. Like that is just done. Chase Brown, 3rd in the league in opportunity share. Like we should be getting so
It's so
excited about that.
annoying. It's so annoying.
But he just like isn't, you know, we know he's like a smaller guy with juice. And like, you know, when uh, Jeff said this yesterday when we were recording the Dynasty episode, and I think it makes so much sense. Like the Bengals, their entire team, the way that they built this team was like, we don't care about an offensive line or a running back because we have a quarterback that can overcome those bad situations. Like our quarterback is so good that he can operate without an offensive line and without a good running back. Well, now that quarterback's gone. So now the offensive line and the running back, it's really rearing its ugly head. And now nothing is working because they don't have a superstar quarterback under center. So yeah, I mean, like maybe a trade is on the horizon. Maybe they're just punting this whole season away. But like, I gotta admit, this morning, like Michael Pittman is a guy I drafted in a lot of leagues, and he's been pretty hot so far this year. And this morning, I was like, I'm gonna go try to buy low on Jamar Chase. So Jamar Chase for my Michael Pittman, and I was sitting there with my thumb hovering over the send button, and I was just like, I can't do it. I think I'd
Yeah.
prefer Michael Pittman right now. And like, I still want to hold on to Jamar Chase, like on the hope for Jamar Chase, but there's a chance that he just ends up being a huge bust this year. And like, if this team ends up with a huge losing record at the midway point of the season, they might just say like, hey, you know, Jamar Chase picked up an injury and his season's over. Like I could see them just kind of punting this year away and just looking towards 2026.
I think what this does, it reminds me a lot of the Miami Dolphins last year, where people were just starting Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle every week because they were players that they drafted highly, and it's the Dolphins offense, right? Like it should be good. Well, when you've got a backup quarterback in there and the offense loses its identity, that was actually the worst thing you could do is keep starting these players because they were losing you your weeks. Like you
Yep.
actually have to look at these players that they're no longer the matchup proof stars that you drafted them to be. You actually have to play the matchups and see how wide receivers, how quarterbacks, how running backs are doing against these opponents because I think all of that is gone. So it's not necessarily that you need to sell these players. It's not necessarily that you have to bench them. It's that you need to change your approach and how you're looking at them in a week in and week out basis. All right, let's go to the next one, Dave. I think you and I each have what, 2 more left?
Yeah. Yeah,
Let's
and
do
this
it.
one, this is probably my spiciest take of the show. So, I saved this one for a little bit later when hopefully some people have stopped watching by this point, so all the YouTube commenters
Nobody
aren't
has
letting me
stopped
hear it.
watching. Everyone is still watching.
I think you should try to sell high on Drake May. And I know right now, a young guy, the QB5 in fantasy, but there's two things that like really jump out to me that concern me a little bit. One, he's averaging a score every other game on the ground. That is probably going to regress. Like I don't think that Drake May is going to be scoring 9 rushing touchdowns this year. And two, you look at his schedule through the first 4 weeks, he's played against the Las Vegas Raiders, the Miami Dolphins, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if his schedule gets much easier for a quarterback than what we've seen Drake May have through this first month of the season. If you want to hold him, I have no issues with it whatsoever. But his schedule is going to get tougher. And when I look at this offense, they have not had a wide receiver one who has stepped up yet. I mean, like we saw a little flash from Stephon Diggs last week. We saw a flash from Kayshon Boutte in week one, but like Hunter Henry has been their primary receiving option this year. And that concerns me a little bit. So, like I said, if you want to hold him, go for it. But if I have Drake May, I would try to flip him for Justin Fields, who, like, yeah, there's some concern about him getting injured or maybe losing his job down the stretch. But like we've seen him just printing 30 points in 2 of his 3 starts so far this year. Dak Prescott, much better offensive environment. Caleb Williams, a better offensive environment and the same rushing upside that Drake May has. Justin Herbert, I think some people might be panicking about the Joe Alt injury. So, he's not a must sell by any means, but if I've got Drake May, I think that you can sell high right now. And if you can flip it for Justin Fields, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, or Justin Herbert, I would do that.
So my thing where I'm 100% going to keep Drake May. I get what you're saying, but I'm looking at the schedule and it does. There are some stretches where it's harder, but for the most part, it is still a very, very friendly schedule. You got
AFC
Tampa.
East stinks. Yeah. I mean, 6
Yeah,
games against AFC East opponents is pretty nice for any quarterback.
weeks 10, the little thing on Sleeper where you can look at the game logs and you
Mhm.
can see like it gives you kind of the color. Week 10 through 18 are all green for Drake May. And a lot of these opponents are relatively easy ones where it's Tampa Bay, the New York Jets, Cincinnati Bengals, New York Giants, a bye week in week 14, the Buffalo Bills, which their secondary has struggled, Baltimore Ravens, their defense has struggled, and the Jets in week 17. So I do see a schedule here where like it's good later. There's going to be a rough patch. Like there's going to be a rough patch, especially going against Cleveland, Atlanta. I think we're still figuring out what some of these defenses are. So maybe some of these that are, highlighted green end up being orange and red later in the year. The Bills defense can certainly get better. The Ravens defense can certainly get
That's it.
better.
The Bills
Uh,
this week in Sunday Night Football, I think that's the one.
right.
That's what has me worried. I think the Bills defense is better than the fantasy points against them allowed
100%.
really tells us. So I think like this
Yeah.
is where like right now everybody like found gold. Drake May like got him late in my draft. He's the QB5 right now, but if he comes out in a primetime game and struggles, that value is going to crater. So that's why I think like right now I think Justin Fields, I don't know if you can get Justin Fields because he's coming off a really good primetime game as well. Not a good primetime game, but a good fantasy performance in a primetime matchup. And
Mhm.
Justin Herbert, he's been balling out, but I think, like I said, with Joe Alden injury, there might be a window there. So this is one where, like, I think Drake May is fine. I think if you hold him, you're probably getting top 12 production from Drake May for the rest of the year. But I feel like right now you can trade him for one of those guys that has top 5 upside. And I don't know if Drake May has that for the full season.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you on that all the way. Like I think there is the top 5 upside. It's probably not as big. Like I think if you can go and you can make a move for a guy like Jaden Daniels right now, who has
Oh,
missed a
yeah, that's
couple of
another one.
games
Yeah.
and someone is worried, like that is a or a Lamar Jackson. Like those
Yeah,
are the specific
absolutely.
ones where I'm saying like you can take here's Drake May and Hunter Henry and here's a pack. Like that's probably no one's
I
doing
was,
that. But I'm saying like here's Drake May and I don't know, just throw in another piece. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like to get a Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels, that's where I'm on board because you're cashing in. But to me, to switch from Drake May to Justin Fields, that almost maybe I'm wrong. It almost feels like a downgrade, or it just feels like a lateral move. Like I'd rather stick with May for what I'm doing here. All right, let's keep going. We got a couple more that we want to bring up here. And DeAndre Swift is a running back, Dave, that has been tough to quite understand. He's another one that's kind of like Chase Brown, where you're like, man, he's getting plenty of opportunity, and then it's just not always pretty. But the offense for the Bears has been good. And I use next gen stats here for DeAndre Swift because there was something really interesting. So I'm wondering, I'm watching the film and I'm seeing, man, he's not getting the yards that's available to him. And this is something you and I have talked about where he doesn't always have the best vision as a runner, and you see it, but to make it tangible and something that you're not just seeing on film, something that is stat driven from next gen stats, DeAndre Swift has been contacted behind the line of scrimmage at the third lowest rate of qualifying running backs and has averaged the fifth most yards before contact per carry amongst running backs with at least 15 carries. Despite this, DeAndre Swift has recorded the lowest rushing success rate among the same group of running backs. Basically, he's got great blocking in front of him. He's got the run lanes, and he's doing the least amount with those running lanes of any running back. And that is, honestly, it's upsetting to see as a fantasy manager, but I think that that's something that Ben Johnson is taking a look at and wondering what else can we do with our running game if DeAndre Swift is simply not taking what's there, even against light fronts, light boxes, defensive boxes that have less than 7 defenders, so 6 defenders on the line of scrimmage, second lowest rush EPA for any running back in the league right now. DeAndre Swift has opportunity, and it's good opportunity, and he's just not making good usage of it. Dave, I'm worried. I'm worried about DeAndre Swift, especially a team like this that is finding success. And I know we kind of said like it's been up and down. I'll say that it's been inconsistent. Maybe not the same success as the Jaguars, right? Like we said, teams that are winning don't make big sweeping changes. The Bears have been on the precipice where it's like, oh, we look really good this week. Oh, we look really bad this next week. And it's been back and forth, but there is hope that this is a good Bears offense and a good Bears team. They have the bye week that's coming up. And that's my fear, is that coming out of the bye is where they start to say, okay, let's start to deploy a 3-headed attack. Let's bring in someone else. Let's sign somebody. Let's trade for somebody, where they try to make this adjustment of, hey, we can be a playoff team if we get our run game going. And it's just not going with DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, like you're talking to one of the biggest DeAndre Swift haters in the world. Like I can't stand watching this guy. It just like ruins my love for football every time he gets a carry. Like he is just an east-west runner, can't break a tackle to save his life. But the opportunity's been there. Like he's 16th in expected fantasy points. He is getting an 80% opportunity share in this
That's
backfield.
what I
The Bears
said.
are
It's
trending
been there.
up. I know, and that's kind of like where like there's nobody right now that I think challenges him to take his role. Like to me, it's a very similar conversation to what we had with Saquon Barkley not too long ago. We're like, I'm not saying DeAndre Swift is Saquon Barkley. Don't put words in my mouth, people. But I'm saying like
Too late.
it's kind of like a poor man's version of Saquon Barkley, where it's like a guy who's getting all of the opportunity with nobody breathing on his neck on what we know is a pretty good offense. Of course, DeAndre Swift isn't as good as Saquon Barkley. The Bears aren't as good as the Eagles, and you know, I'm like taking everything I said about Saquon Barkley and turning it down like from a 10 to an 8. But I still think like there's opportunity to be had here. I just feel like right now, if you're selling at such a low point because the production hasn't been there. Just 1 touchdown in the year. You know, DeAndre Swift, it's been very similar to Saquon Barkley. We haven't seen him break off those big runs, and we know that that's something that's in his wheelhouse. So I don't know if I can get behind selling
The difference
DeAndre
for
Swift. I
me is,
might be
well, I mean,
buying for really cheap.
DeAndre Swift coming off his best performance of the year, which is why I'm saying that he gets the touchdown last week, running back 20 on the week. The big difference, we're talking about the opportunity share, and the snaps are not quite there for Swift. Like Saquon Barkley is consistently an 80+% snap share. DeAndre Swift, that number has been hovering around 60 throughout the
He
last 3
gives up
games here.
snaps to Kyle Monangai, but Kyle
Yeah.
Monangai doesn't really get touches. Like Kyle Monangai
Right. And
snaps.
he hasn't been great either. Like, don't
Right.
get me wrong. And I don't think that they have some sort of affinity for Roshan Johnson either.
Oh, he's done.
But
Yeah, I don't even
that's
think he's
my
like in their game plans.
But that's my worry here is that Ben Johnson, for whatever you might think about him personally, he is a guy that makes adjustments, right? Like he doesn't seem to be stubborn in that way where he's going to try to keep fitting a square peg into a round hole. So if we're saying DJ Moore is a trade candidate, well, what if there's a DJ Moore trade for a good running back to come in, something like that? Like it's high, it's like pie
I
in the
can't
sky
stop thinking
mentality.
about Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, the time that they spent together in Detroit. Like they know each other well. We saw what DJ Moore can do with Justin Fields, Brees Hall in the Chicago Bears offense. Like, why can't this happen? Like, it would be so fun for Bears fans, for Jets fans, for fantasy managers. Like, just make it happen. Like, sure,
It's
the Bears are losing out on some value here, but like DJ Moore for Brees Hall, just make it happen, please.
Yeah, I think it doesn't though because of the Braylon Allen injury,
Yeah,
and with the Jets being 0-4, like them, ugh, I don't
yeah.
know, man.
It's not
It's
going to
not great.
happen, but let me daydream here, please.
Yeah, no, it's
It'd be
fine.
fun.
It's
It'd
fine.
be fun. We'd all love it.
It's fine. All right,
Like the
let's
most
go
like
to your.
Madden fantasy football move trade imaginable. Like this never happens in the NFL, but my goodness, it would be fun.
All right, Dave. Let's go to your last one on here.
I'll give you a two for here. Buy Brock Bowers and Tucker Kraft while you still
Good,
can.
good.
Last week, Tucker Kraft did 2 catches that went down on the 1 yard line. Let's just say hypothetically he scored one of those touchdowns. He'd be the overall tight end one in fantasy right now. Let's say he scored on both of those touchdowns. He would have almost 10 more, or he'd have more than 10 points more than the next closest tight end. I mean, Brock or Tucker Kraft has been awesome, and I don't even think that like the production that we've seen so far really encapsulates how good he has been because we saw that week 3 game where he was coming back from an injury and clearly not 100%. I mean, he is just such a good player, and I'm not going to dig into all the X's and O's like we did a couple of weeks ago. Sure, he has some limitations, but like Matt LaFleur knows exactly how to use him, and that's what we saw last week. It didn't translate to what we wanted to see in fantasy because he went down to the one twice, but still getting the same usage we want to see. Like it would not surprise me if Tucker Kraft is the overall tight end one this year. And then Brock Bowers as well. I think people are panicking about him. He's the tight end 11 through 3 weeks. I'm sorry, through 4 weeks, but he is clearly impacted by this injury. Like you can just see it. Like he's not getting out of his breaks like he usually does. There was a pass that went over his head in the end zone where like normally you'd see Brock Bowers just leaping out of the arena, like 6 feet off the ground coming down with this pass. And like he just couldn't even jump the way that he normally does. He's got this big bulky brace on his knee since week 1 that's clearly been impacting him. But what we saw in week 1 when he was healthy was that Brock Bowers was Brock Bowers. He had 8 targets. He
Yeah,
had 103 yards. Like people are so quick to forget. And now people are panicking about him. Maybe this is just like a knee injury that lingers all year. And Brock Bowers just has a down year. That is certainly within the range of possibilities. But we talked last week. We've talked a lot this season about how like no tight ends really matter outside of the elite guys. And Brock Bowers is an elite guy. So when you've got these Juwan Johnson has been trending down, probably doesn't have a lot of value right now, but I think of like a Hunter Henry right now, who is just red hot. I think about Dalton Kincaid coming off a handful of touchdowns in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you can get Brock Bowers for one of those guys, but if you pair them up with an injury away running back or a wide receiver too, or one of these other guys, like I am absolutely trying to tear up from those Hunter Henrys and Dalton Kincaids and
yeah.
Harold Fannons and all those other buzzy names. If I can turn that into a Brock Bowers or a Tucker Kraft, even giving up more, I want to do that.
Yeah, honestly, and I'm sitting here thinking the same thing about a guy like Jake Ferguson, who's been having a really good string of games here. Like when CeeDee Lamb comes back, like that's another one. Like I would make that move as well for Brock Bowers or even Trey McBride. Like both of the top tight ends have been kind of down, and so the question is like, do they stay there? I don't think so,
I,
especially not Bowers.
I don't know if I'm there with Ferguson and McBride. I mean, I like McBride more than I like Bowers, and right now I do have Bowers like just ahead of Jake Ferguson in my rankings. But I think Ferguson has, ascended ahead of the Hunter Henrys and the other guys. Like his target volume has been just obscene with or without CeeDee Lamb. It hasn't really mattered. So I'm kind of looking at Jake Ferguson in that elite tier of tight ends now. And maybe I should have Hunter Henry and Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts in that discussion as well. But I'm not really taking the cheese on those guys the way that I am with Jake Ferguson. So Kyle Pitts was the other name that popped to mind. Like he's been red hot over the last couple of weeks. He's another player. Like if you could trade Kyle Pitts and another player on your team to move up for Tucker Kraft and a Brock Bowers, I think that's just a great move to make.
That's the tough part, is that I don't think people are doing that. Like, I still think there is a lot of name value to things. So it's like, that's why you kind of have to do, even if it's just like a mini tier up from a Ferguson to a Bowers, like however they're looking here, like I have more confidence in Bowers going forward. By the way, I was sitting here thinking the whole time, it was right there in front of us. DJ Moore to the Seattle Seahawks for Zach Charbonnet and a pick.
Yeah, I'd love
Yes.
that. I'd
Yes.
hate it for my
Okay.
JSN shares, but it would be
Yeah,
a lot
no,
of
it would
fun.
suck. It would absolutely suck. All right. Last one that I'm going to throw out here is more of just a philosophical thing, Dave, and I want to talk about this. Is I like to, at this point, trade for players that are out with injuries or have been out with injuries on IR. Players like Rashee Rice, George Kittle, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb. This is when the bye weeks are starting to hit. This is when fantasy managers are starting to get desperate. This is when people are putting a bunch of money into their blind fab bids and then losing out on it and saying, "Oh my God, I need to." I hear this so much in my home leagues and then questions on social media. I really need to start someone in my wide receiver 2 spot this week. I really need to start a running back 2. I really need a flex. And the desperation of that week settles in, where they say, "Yeah, fine, fine. I'll give you Rashee Rice just for for whatever wide receiver. I need to start someone this week. I can't go 0-5." Well, this is the time to start making those deals, Dave. And so I want to talk to you about that. Is how do you feel about doing that for these players, especially fantasy managers that have bad records right now? Players like Rashee Rice and George Kittle and some of these guys, even Rashee Rice, who's like not coming off injury, like he's coming off suspension. That's almost seems to be the best bet to go for.
And an injury. I mean, it is kind of funny how quickly we just like
It's
forget like
no, I
everybody
mean
is
it's
just
like it's further back. Like it's not a
right,
recent thing.
right.
Like Kittle had the recent hamstring or McLaurin had the recent injury.
But there could be a ramp up for Rashee Rice that I think a lot of people aren't really taking into consideration. But I digress. We don't have to get into all that. But yeah, definitely trading for those guys right now because a lot of those players, we've seen a lot of highly drafted players go on IR early this season. George Kittle and CeeDee Lamb are the ones that immediately jump to mind. But yeah, if you can trade for those guys right now, I think it's a good move. Brandon Ayuk is probably the one that I'm pausing on a little bit. Not too crazy about John Lynch's comments about him still being
Agreed.
like far from a return. That definitely worries me. But George Kittle, yeah, I mean, I've still got George Kittle in that elite tier. Like I was just talking about buying low on Tucker Kraft and Brock Bowers. I don't think you can buy lower on any elite tight end right now than George Kittle. And a lot of people too, you got to remember when Kittle went down, a lot of people like immediately after week 1 picked up a Jake Ferguson or a Hunter Henry. So now they're feeling like I don't even need Kittle at this point. Like I already found gold with Hunter Henry, meaning you could probably get Kittle for even cheaper. So I think that's probably the guy that you can get for the best deal. The only issue is like those fantasy managers after week 1 that picked up Hunter Henry or Jake Ferguson probably aren't sitting at 0-4 right now. They might be doing okay because of that patch job that they were able to do there. So yeah, I think just like philosophically, big picture, yeah, you always want to trade for these players on IR if you're sitting above 500 because you can absorb that risk better than other teams can.
Yeah, I think it starts to become the perfect storm of we haven't had a great waiver wire week. Like so far, we've had a couple of players here and there, but we haven't had the big overwhelming waiver wire weeks. Bye weeks are coming in. Injuries feel crazier. We say that every year, but injuries feel crazier than ever this year. And
Speaking of, did you see the news that came through while we were recording? They're saying a foot sprain for Bucky Irving. He's on crutches and in a boot. Not good.
Bye Rashad White. There you
Ah,
go. Breaking
there you go.
news.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, the injuries just keep coming.
I don't want to celebrate an injury, but the Rashad White like all over my bench feels pretty good to have. And this is
That's
something.
why
This
you
is
plan for these ahead of time. Yeah, you don't like
100%.
yeah.
100%. It's an ugly part of the game, right? And it's not us like victory lapping that a player is hurt, but this is why you draft the way you do. Like we always talk about these contingency guys, these injury away running backs, and it's a big momentum swinger for your fantasy team.
Mhm.
Dave, look at you with the reporting. I like it. Well, I think that's it for us. It's going to be a wrap. We're going to be back again tomorrow
Just want
with
to say I enjoy the
our
show. This is a fun one, Alfredo. I like just kind of, just keeping it loose and conversational. This is fun. I'm enjoying this one quite a bit.
I don't enjoy any minute of this show. I enjoy when we log off and I slam my laptop shut. But we'll be back. I'm just kidding. We'll be back again tomorrow with our starts, sits, and streamers for week 5 of fantasy football. As always, I want to thank everybody for watching or listening all the way through. For myself, for Dave, we'll see you next time. Adios.